Garbage truck drivers can earn up to $99,000 with the city of Toronto. Is the salary of $120,000 high? Is $45,000 low? Is your income on the higher or on the lower side? And yes, at the end of this video, I will tell you what I earn as well. It certainly depends, for one, on the purchasing power, so what that salary actually buys. But oftentimes, our perception of our income has a lot to do with how it fares in comparison with other people. So in this video today, let's talk a bit about how much Canadians earn. So let's start with income distribution. At the top here, 21.2% of full-time workers earn more than $100,000. This range is obviously huge. And depending on the type of work exactly, it could go up to millions. Note that this chart includes full-time workers, so I'm assuming that it includes both employed as well as self-employed people. Then 13.5% earn between $80,000 and $99,000, 19% between $60,000 to $79,999. So far, 53.7%, about half, earn above $60,000. And I'm just assuming that this is before tax. Unfortunately, it didn't say in the source of this chart. So let's say $60,000 after tax would be very roughly $45,000, an amount that is quite livable in a city, for example, like Toronto. So just for people living outside of Canada, to provide some context on living expenses here, the cost of living will of course depend on which province you live in, which city you live in exactly, and also your lifestyle. But in a city like Toronto, I could, if I were a single person, comfortable or not is subjective of course, live on $45,000. Divided by 12 months, that's $3,750 per month. Let's say you spend $2,200 on rent and $1,550 on all the other expenses. By the way, in Toronto, according to Numbeo, a single person's monthly costs excluding rent are about $1,541. So right now, or in 2021 to be exact here, about half of full-time workers earned enough to meet this level. If this data were after tax money, of course, that would be better news, meaning there would be an additional 10% or so full-time workers who meet this level. 11.8% earn between $50,000 and $59,999, 12.3% between $40,000 and $49,999, 9.8% between $30,000 and $39,999. For the rest, we have 12.5% earning below $30,000. What about these people? Here that we have these really low numbers over here, people are earning $5,000 or $10,000 or even making losses here, because this chart here not only includes employees but also self-employed people. And yes, that's the reality. If you're self-employed, especially if you're just starting out, you can experience years with just a couple of $1,000s of income or even losses. Does this mean that all of them do not have enough to survive? In some instances, yes, but not all of them. Now, what this chart doesn't tell us, of course, is household income. It only tells us that some people, for example, earn $35,000 per year, but they could either be single, they could also just have had their first job and are still living with their parents, or they could be living with their spouse who earns $70,000 or $80,000, which brings them to a higher household income. Note, of course, that age is also a factor. So people who are in their early 20s will naturally, on average, make less money than people who are in their late 40s, who are usually at the peak of their career. In any case, if you're just relying on income from wages, it's very difficult to get ahead financially for most people. So in case you haven't started to invest your money, then do that as soon as possible. After I moved to Canada, I started investing here a bit late, something I rather regret. But now for about 3 years, I've been using this platform called Wealthsimple to do my investments. And I just like it because it's so simple to use, and especially because they offer $0 trading. So they don't charge any commission when you buy stocks or ETFs. I've been pretty happy with them, so just in case you want to try out Wealthsimple too, then you can use my referral link in the descriptions down below. And if you open and fund an account, then both of us, you and I, will each get $25. Now let's delve deeper into the high earner bracket, the top 10%. So this chart here even shows us the earnings in different provinces. Now, if we look at Canada as a whole, the top decile would be the top 10% earners, earns $224,800 after tax here on average. The lowest decile, or the lowest 10% of earners, earn $12,700 per year after tax on average. In Alberta, people who are in the highest income decile, the top 10% there, earn an average of $259,900, the highest in the nation. And even the earnings in the lowest decile, the lowest 10%, is higher than in most other provinces, with $14,400. For those of you living in Alberta, let me know in the comments down below, is this the sense that you get as well? In Ontario, the highest income decile earns $240,000 on average, while the lowest decile earns $11,300 on average. So these lowest numbers, of course, would only make sense if you include self-employed people, freelance workers, and people who are full-time employed, but let's say only for half or a quarter of the year. On the lower side here, we have PEI, where the highest decile earns $168,000 after tax on average, and the lowest decile $14,500. Okay, this kind of gives us an idea of the differences between the provinces, but again, averages don't tell us that much, unfortunately. But anyways, I thought that it would be interesting to look at how much the top 1%, the top 0.1%, and the top 0.01% earn in this country. According to StatCan, the top 1% in 2020 earned on average $512,000. The top 0.1% earned on average $1.7 million, and the top 0.01% $5.9 million. And I think that it's safe to say that for the top 0.1% and above, a lot of the income is not just earned from wages, but from self-employment, business, dividend income, and so on. And yes, these amounts are a far cry away from what the bottom 50% earn, which is $22,100 on average. But it's very important to say that I'm not making this video in the spirit of talking about unfairness or inequality. No, this is not that kind of video. But I see it this way. For those with an income that's rather on the medium to lower side, this can hopefully be a motivation to try to earn more, if not in the millions, but achieve some kind of improvement in their earnings, whether that's from employment or perhaps self-employment. Whereas for those people who earn a ton, knowing that there are so many people who earn so little can hopefully help them foster more empathy for the economical hardship that millions of people are going through at the moment. At least that's how I see it. Even though right now I earn nowhere near those astronomical sums that the top 1%, 0.1% earn, I do plan to do so in the future. So if you're with me on this, then this channel is for you, and in that case, make sure that you're subscribed, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you when my new videos are up. Now, if we talk about employment income, I was really curious to know what kind of jobs out there actually pay the most and which pay on the lower end. So really nice summary in this article over here, and no surprise, physicians in Canada can earn up to $580,000 annually. I'm not gonna go through all of these. Senior Manager of Goods, Production and Transportation, never heard of this before, $332,200. Seems to be a job that deals a lot with logistics and project management. Engineering Manager, $169,998. Key here is manager, so not just engineer, but engineering manager. And actuary, $140,566. So actuaries mostly work in the insurance industry, and they analyze the financial consequences of risk and uncertainty. The highest paying jobs are, of course, entrepreneurial. If you have your own business, of course, there's a risk, but the upside earning potential is unlimited. So if you really want to earn money, then that's something to consider. Now, what about the lowest paying jobs? On the lower side, we mostly have hourly paying jobs, which include bartending, $17 per hour. And yes, of course, I know this doesn't include any tips yet, and they can be huge. And by the way, this article here is from 2022. So of course, we would need to make some adjustments because the minimum wage in most provinces are now higher. Hotel clerk, $16. Cook, $15.50. Of course, if you're a Michelin star chef, then that will be very different. Dishwasher, $14. Cashier, $14. Service station attendant, $14. It was also really interesting to find out how much wages differ between industries. So if you think that currently you're not earning enough, that your earning potential is limited, then perhaps it's time for a switch. On the lower side, we have, unsurprisingly, accommodation, so hotels and food service with an average of $19.60 per hour. But again, I don't think that this includes any tips. A bit higher up, we have healthcare with $31 $14.99 per hour. And at the top end, there are jobs in forestry, fishing, oil and gas with a whopping $47.4 per hour on average. Also, utilities at $49.41 per hour, and public administration at $42.50 per hour. Of course, the limitation with this data is that each number averages out the salary of different positions, so from total beginner to experienced. So you might also be curious to know how much people in Canada earn in specific jobs. Let's just look at some jobs. For example, coffee barista in Toronto. The range of the base pay here, so not including any benefits, is $27,000 to $35,000 per year. So this would be for a full-time position. If you're a student just working 20 hours at Starbucks, no, you won't be making this much money. Then software engineers in Toronto, and by the way, I'm using the example of Toronto because I'm living here. The base pay range is $73,000 to $115,000 per year, and the salary range here is really huge depending on the company. While at Amazon, for example, you could be earning $120,000 or more per year. At banks like RBC and TD, you'd only be earning about $85,000 per year. So pick your employer wisely. And these again, of course, are averages. Depending on your experience level at Amazon, for example, you could be earning $50,000-ish thousands on the lower end, or $220,000 on the high end. Now let's look at accountant salaries in Canada. The base pay range is between $47,000 and $69,000. But don't underestimate accountants. While the average is rather modest, depending on the experience you have and the company that you work for, you could be earning anywhere from a low of $32,000, but also up to a high of $145,000. And in fact, I know people, accountants, so not manager, accountants who earn more than $100,000. Now, garbage truck drivers. Garbage truck drivers can earn up to $99,000 within the city of Toronto. Now let's get to the super interesting but also quite sobering part. Self-employment income. Canadians who only had income from self-employment earned $22,866 in 2005. To make this $20,000 a bit more realistic, let's just do a very crude calculation here and assume that after 19 years, now in 2024, that number went up by 50%, in line with the average inflation of the services that they provide. That would bring us to about $30,000 per year on average for self-employment income. Yes, I know it's sobering. Self-employment is not easy at all. But remember, within this average of $30,000, and that is why averages are not very useful, there are people who have just started out working for themselves and just earned $5,000. There are also people who have decided to give up. But in this number are also successful self-employed people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Now, as I promised, I will tell you how much I earn, or rather how much we earn as a household, our household income. While I'm self-employed, my husband is employed, so our combined household income falls into this bracket here, but rather on the lower end. So if you're curious to know how much it actually costs to live in Canada, or more precisely in Toronto, then you can watch this video next. And also, if you're still looking for an investment platform, then you might want to check out Wealthsimple, and for that you can use my referral link in the descriptions below.